Welcome to Bitcoin Fixes This, where we explore the impact that Bitcoin will have in all aspects of society. Today's guest is Lamar Wilson, coder, entrepreneur, and the creator of Black Bitcoin Billionaires on Clubhouse. We talk about diversity, how the Bitcoin community has changed, and why he's so passionate about helping his community. Lamar also tells us about the spiritual side of community and figuring out good ways to move forward in this new world together. All right, Lamar Wilson, how's everything going, man?
Going great, man. I love always having an opportunity to talk with you, brother.
Yeah, I mean, we go quite a ways back, but why don't you tell our audience where you're from and stuff?
Yeah, man. My name is Lamar Wilson. I am from the most beautiful city in the world, Lexington, Kentucky. I am a great follower of Jimmy Song. He's the dude, and I've had the pleasure of actually helping him TA and teach some of his classes in the past, and it's always been amazing. So what's up?
But yeah, I mean, you're talking about me, but we really this show is about you, right? Like, so tell me what's up, man. Like, you're in Kentucky. What are you doing there? What's your history? What's your background?
Yeah, man. So I'm in Kentucky. I've been an entrepreneur almost my entire adult life. I've done a lot of different things. I own real estate, own some Cold Stone creameries, and then I taught myself how to program, which led me to build like Facebook, MySpace applications, and then go ahead and make building enterprise applications, and then that led me and me building like just start doing startup stuff. You know what I mean? Like being a software developer, trying startup stuff, which led me to Bitcoin. Because when I was raising money, trying to raise money for my game startup that I had, my gaming startup I had, one of the investors said, "Hey, have you heard of Bitcoin?" And I thought he said Big Coin, BIG coin, but he said Bitcoin, and that's it. Pretty much is what that was the seed that was planted that wound up growing into the person that I am today.
Nice. So you've been in Bitcoin for quite a while, and it's we met back in 2014 it was at a Bitcoin conference and everything else, and I remember that project that you did because it was like I can't believe you figured it out, but you had like the only iOS Bitcoin wallet. Can you tell us a little bit more about that story and what the heck happened there?
Yeah, man, I remember. So there was an issue with Apple kicking all of the Bitcoin wallets out of the iOS store. And so we had built this wallet. Once I learned about Bitcoin, I had to build something because, there's no greater marriage of two disciplines that I have a finance degree and I'm a software developer by trade. So I had to build something. So we built this wallet. And when they kicked everyone out of the system, what we said was there's another way for us to distribute an iOS wallet that most people don't know of. And that's by basically using the enterprise license. Because again, go back into me actually understanding creating enterprise applications for other businesses. It's like when you understood that there was an enterprise license, what we did was we created a co-op so that everybody who bought the wallet or who downloaded the wallet, there was no payment, but who downloaded the wallet was also a member of the cooperative. And we talked to Apple and everything was good. And the crazy thing is the very first article we got from CoinDesk, it was basically like, these guys are scammers, they're gonna get closed down, right? That word scammer gets thrown around a whole lot. But what's crazy is that as we continue to move on, they started realizing we weren't scammers and we actually just outthought most of the people in the space because we thought about it in a different light by saying, hey, we're going to work together. We're going to create a cooperative, and that cooperative is going to allow us to have this Bitcoin wallet. And we call it the cycle of goodness or COG, the COG co-op.
Yeah, and there's like nothing more Bitcoin than what you did, right? Like you found the way around like the corporate gatekeepers and figured out a way to get all this wallet into the hands of a lot of people. And that literally was, for a while, the only Bitcoin wallet that you can download on iOS. That to me was like absolutely astounding.
Yeah, man. I think we call it hood rigging, right? Like we figured out a way to do it. Most people would look down on like hood rigging, but when you don't have a lot, what do they say? Necessity is the mother of invention. When you don't have a lot, you start thinking a little bit differently, and that's why I always feel like we need to have as many diverse thoughts in this space as possible, because the way people think is completely different from one another. You know what I'm saying? It's funny. I'm gonna tell you this quick story, Jimmy, about when we was in Dallas. We were walking in Dallas, and we was walking with a big group of people going to get tacos, and the first group of people were walking under these electric lines, and all of these birds were pooping on their heads, pretty much. So like 2 or 3 of the people in front of us got pooped on. But when I walked, because I'm used to those like black birds like being everywhere, I started clapping, and they all flew away, and everybody was like, "Is that all you supposed to do?" I was like, "Yeah, you don't walk under birds like a huge group of birds." And it was just like that. And I told him, I said, that's why you need people from everywhere around all the time, because people have experiences that allow them to think about things in a different light, and those experiences help you to solve problems. And so everybody started clapping, and we didn't have another bird over our head the rest of the way to the taco shop. So I think it's a very big lesson that we all need to learn, is that we need to listen to all types of perspectives and try to understand the world, through other eyes sometimes.
Yeah, and that's a really good topic, right? Because like when I got into Bitcoin and I went to that conference, like you and Leif, I think, your business partner, like you guys were like the only black guys there, and me, like, I mean, there were a couple Asians there, but yeah, I felt like I connected with you almost immediately, because like, okay, we're clearly in the minority here, and there's a bunch of other people. Talk to me about the importance of diversity and how this community has changed over the last 7 years.
Oh my gosh, great question, Jimmy. Again, the importance goes back to that little small lesson I talked about with the bird. But at the same time, it's very important, just because if we want to have the world money and we want people to benefit from it, especially, that's always been my mission, is that I want the everyday person to be able to outrun, or to front run, I would say, the billionaires and the millionaires that, they sit in their ivory towers sometimes, and they look down on us like, ha ha ha, we have all the cash. But they're sitting on the Titanic, right? They're on the top floor of the Titanic, and don't realize that the sink is shipping. I mean, the sink is shipping. The ship is sinking. Listen to me. The ship is sinking. So I think it's very important that we have it, but it has changed dramatically, Jimmy. And I think it takes intention. Like you have to be intentional about like access, and that's all it really ever is. Everyone's like, well, we don't need like a black Bitcoin billionaires, and we don't need. What if I made a white Bitcoin billionaires? And my whole thing I first say is, why are you focusing on black? The fact that you're not a billionaire is gonna keep you out of the club. But but the second. But the second thing I always say is that it doesn't matter, because it's really just about focus, right? It's about marketing. It's about focus and realizing which areas don't have someone screaming out. And like, it's, again, if we use that analogy of the Titanic, there are different levels in the Titanic, and if no one goes to those levels and screams, hey, the ship is sinking, then those people will just be in their bed sleep. Right. And so what I said is, I'm going to go to the community that I've grown up in and around black folk, and make sure I scream it real loud, and hopefully everybody hears it. I don't care if you white, black, green, red, yellow, purple, pink. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just going to yell it to the rooftops that the ship is sinking, and hopefully we can help guide more and more people to the lifeboat that is Bitcoin in this financial world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and obviously the world was very different in 2014. When we met, and that conference obviously was a very different affair than like the stuff that's happening today. You've obviously like created this community with the Black Bitcoin billionaires and everything else. How has Bitcoin been taken up in this sort of like very diverse way? Because obviously, when it started, it was a very different thing, right? Like back in 2011, 2012, 2013, like it had a very different reputation than it does today. It seems, what's changed? Like what's like, is it better marketing? What's going on? How come more minorities are taking positions in Bitcoin and so on?
I think it's to be honest, I truthfully think it's time and intentionality. Even before I started the Black Bitcoin Billionaires, we had a group of 26,000 people called Coinda on Facebook, and I remember you interviewed with me there. I brought you in.
That's right. Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I've also interviewed you for the Black Blockchain Summit, right?
Yeah.
So like having these types of events has definitely educated a populace that sometimes gets left behind. And then at the same time, the cool part about it is that as that's gone on, I think many Black people, many people who are disadvantaged have realized that this is an asset that they have access to without too many barriers for entry. And that hasn't really happened in this country, especially for Black people, right? Like there aren't too many assets that Black people have had this easy of an access to, and that's the reason why that Black people and I think it's like Black and Latino people are picking it up at higher percentages than their counterparts, right? And I think that's why, because it's just way easier to get it.
Yeah. I mean, you don't need anyone's permission. That's kind of the big thing about Bitcoin, is that you literally can't stop people from adopting it, even if you wanted to. Sorry.
No, that's right. That's definitely right. Yeah, I was trying to tweet it out, so another screen.
You're tweeting out this live recording thing, which I appreciate, obviously. All right, so the thing that is interesting to me about all of this sort of like bottom up sort of change that we've seen, it's very interesting to me, because early on, I think the way we perceived Bitcoin was that, okay, well, it's not so much that it's the power of the masses. It's more about self-sovereignty and making sure that we take control back from the state. But it's sort of evolved into this thing where, we have like this very large community now, right? Like, and it's very diverse, and there's people of all stripes that are in it now. That sea shift in mentality, right? Like, I guess it's always been about self-sovereignty, but it seems to have significantly become much more of a grassroots effort than it was before. Like, 2013, 2014, it was all led by these like VCs that were like just preaching Bitcoin to the entrepreneurs like you. Instead, now it's like getting out to the masses. It's much more of a bottom-up movement. Like, how do you think that changes? I guess change occurred, and then how do you see that happening going forward?
Yeah. Man, I think the change occurred because the Titanic hit the iceberg, man. and all the rich people, like I said, are at the top, and they don't even realize there's a leak. And so the people who are really feeling it the most, the people in Nigeria, the people in Zimbabwe, the people in Argentina and Turkey, right? Those people that are feeling it the most are the ones saying, hey, man, we need to get out of here because we know there's a leak. We have been dealing with this crazy inflation in our country for many years, and we know we need to get out of this situation and off of this ship called fiat currency. So I think what happens is that Bitcoin, because of its properties, tends to attract people that are really in the line of fire the most. And I think here in the United States, I think we do more speculating on it because we just haven't hit it that hard, right? But we're seeing some inflation numbers that we haven't seen in, what did they say, 30 years? Like 6.2% inflation, which people are talking about that number. But I think what's going to happen is people will continue to start realizing, hey, there is a leak in this building and we need to move. You know what I mean? And I think that's what's going to change everything. And I think the diversity of the people in the space and everyone who is talking about it. I love talking to people from all over the world. We always have people from everywhere in our rooms. I remember one room we had a guy from El Salvador, Nigeria, Iran, all at the same time, right? And they all had very, very specific reasons why they liked Bitcoin and why Bitcoin was important to them. And of course, it's far different than the person who's in the United States betting on some doggy coin, some baby dog coin. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a completely different thing. Like for those people, it kind of changes their life, right? And to be honest, I think Bitcoin will change anyone's life who gets it, but some people just don't see it because they're too high up on the Titanic in their nice lofty, nice lofty rooms, you know.
Yeah, and that's something that messes up a lot of like VCs, right? Like or like a lot of hedge fund managers and people that are up there, because generally by the time retail gets into something, it's usually too late, or that's their instinct, or that's what they've been seeing all of their life. And then all of a sudden they see this thing and it's all led by retail. It's all bottom up, right? It's people in marginalized places that are getting into it first instead of last, and that's sort of the dynamic that you're describing with the Titanic and the people at the top and stuff. How do you think that like will induce social change going forward? Like, is Bitcoin sort of like, does it fix some of these societal ills around diversity that we see?
Oh man, that's a heck of a question, Jimmy.
You signed up for this. I'm just reminding you, right?
No, that's a really good question. But the one thing that I recognize about revolutions is that they actually revolve. And what I mean is they tend to come back around. And until people, and I don't want to get too philosophical on it, but I get too spiritual, really. It's like until people change their hearts and understand what love is, it doesn't matter what the money is, right? Because people, you know what I mean? That's the part. It might change who has the money, but until their hearts are right, what tends to happen in revolutions is the people become what they were revolting against. And then we've seen that time and time and time again. It's a full circle, right? There needs to be an actual change in the hearts of people and to understand and get empathy and all of these other things that have nothing to do with money, right? And that's the part that I think needs to change if we really get into it. And I didn't want to get too spiritual, but that's really how I believe. I've seen it. I've seen you change the hands of the money, and it doesn't matter because it's the same. You know, as a prime example, the police. Many police officers were bullied. Like I know these guys, right? These are people that were bullied in school, and then when they get a badge on, now all of a sudden they become a bully, as if they forgot what it felt like to be bullied. And I think the same thing will happen until we have other issues that we have to solve. But Bitcoin does solve who has the money, and hopefully that money, when it's in the hands of different people, hopefully those people do have more empathy. Hopefully those people do care more for one another. Hopefully we'll start looking at each other more as humans and not just as items that we need to compete with to try to get to the top. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that like sort of like almost zero-sum game mentality that you're describing, where you're sort of, it's like a dog eat dog world or something like that, does seem very Fiat to me. And I honestly wonder if that's the cause of a lot of, I don't know, the strife that we see societally, especially around matters of race and things like that. It does feel like, okay, well, if these people are getting some, then these other people, like my group, isn't getting theirs. And it sort of assumes that there's a fixed supply of wealth or something like that, and that you need to compete for your share, which is extremely Fiat, whereas Bitcoin actually produces new goods and services and wealth.
No, I'm with you, and it produces better quality. It was funny. I was talking to some young kids, and they realized that. They figured that out. Like as I was talking, I was like, "What happens when you have money that is like so hard to get a hold of, or so hard to create more of? What happens to the people who have that money? Are they going to just spend it on a T-shirt because it has an alligator on it? You know what I'm saying? Or because it has a horse. It's the same T-shirt, but all they did was change the animal on it, and all of a sudden you're paying more money for it." And the guy's like, "No." He's like, "They're just gonna buy, they're gonna buy the thing because they need it, and they're gonna buy the thing because it's quality." I said, "Exactly." I said, "But we don't do that now because there's so much fiat money running around that we're paying $55, $60, $70 for a T-shirt that is the same exact T-shirt that we can get from like, you know, one of these discount stores for $20 or $10, right?" I said, "It's crazy. It's crazy that that's what the fiat world does. That's really what it lowers the quality of goods in the space, right? Because now all of a sudden you're competing, and you're competing at the price level, which is funny to me because that fiat is making your freaking money so worthless that you have to compete at price level. Because otherwise, the people aren't going to have enough to buy the thing that you have. And that's why hard money in the future, I believe, as we continue to move toward hard money, people will stop buying stuff. I've seen many Bitcoiners, like they always talk about selling their chairs. They've sold the car, the chairs, their everything, because they realize those material goods are not worth it in a society where you have an alternative to get out of with hard money like Bitcoin, you know?
Yeah, you have a much better savings vehicle, and these are all depreciating assets. And if your depreciating assets are, doing better than the fiat money's depreciation, of course you're going to go buy those things. But if on the other hand you have something like, something that can store value much better, you're going to go to those. Am I right?
No, that's correct. That being able to store your time, and especially for the people on the bottom rungs of the ship, the people that got the lower inner cabins that don't have the balconies, to be able to store that time that you've put in is a very powerful tool in and of itself. And that's why I always say, yeah, it's cool to play around with stuff. I'm a technologist, right? I enjoy trying to build new stuff, but at the end of the day, just having that alone is empowering to most people on the face of the planet. That having that quality alone, to be able to take all your hard work and put it into something that's not going to lose value over time, that is empowering, and that is extremely powerful. And I think that alone is better than 100,000% of these these baby coins out here.
Well, all right. So let's talk about community a little bit, because obviously you've been working on your community for quite a while. You mentioned the 24,000 people on Facebook, and of course you got this like insanely large group on Clubhouse called Black Bitcoin Billionaires. Can you tell me about like what led you to start these groups and what the response has been, and how it's grown and stuff like that?
Yeah, man, it always starts with education. Like every time I started, I was educating a group of individuals on Facebook, and then I wind up people wanted more of it, so I started my own page, because the reason why I started my own page was a bit weird. One of the guys that was getting education from me went to my private page. Is private now, and he emailed me and said, "Hey, your wife and your daughter are extremely beautiful." So I cut that off. I was like, "No, let me get a public page. I don't need anybody going into my it's weird guys. I don't need that." So I started a public page, and then I just started teaching. And I brought a lot of people on. I brought a lot of people that people would call baby corners right now. I brought them on. I brought you on, right? I brought a lot of people on just to give people an understanding about the space. And then I would go every single day and talk about like, here's these baby coins. And during the ICO time, it was real easy to shout them out, and how they were just marketing and none of this stuff was going to work from a technological standpoint. So that's kind of how we started to build the group. And somebody, while they were watching me, they were like, "Man, we should start a group called the Black Coin Group." And he said, "So we can bring everybody together." And I was like, "All right." And I told my business partner, Leif, I was like, "Leif, go start it now. Let's get it going." And that's how that group grew. And then when Clubhouse came around, one of the people from that group, they said, "Lamar, this Clubhouse app, man, it feels like old Coinda." And I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, man." He said, "You'll love it. You'll do really well on it." And I was like, "Oh, okay, let me go check it out." And I checked it out. And immediately I saw an opportunity to reach more people, because at that time, Clubhouse was probably 60 to 70% Black, like period. It was extremely African-American application. That's how the app really blew up, is because of Black people. Black people made the app really dope. So it was a lot of Black people there. So I started the group Black Bitcoin Billionaire. Hit up my dude. First I hit my dude Zay and said, "Hey, we should start this group." And he just said, "Yeah." And I said, "I got it." So we did it. We started the group Bitcoin Zay. Shout out to Bitcoin Zay, everybody who knows him. We started the group, and it just grew really rapidly. And right now we're like the biggest group outside of the Bitcoin group, which of course it's big because of name, but we're the biggest group around Bitcoin on the entire platform. And that's just a testament to our wonderful mods and everybody who continues to educate. It's always been around education, and it always comes from a place of compassion. It comes from a place of empathy. We don't tend to be too toxic, so to speak. We kind of understand that people come in certain ways, and we have to have a certain amount of empathy to make sure that they understand why we're saying that coin is crap, right? Most of the time you don't get that, right? And people are like, just have fun staying poor. I'm telling you, Bitcoin's the best, whatever. But the way we do it, we make sure we break down why that coin is crap, why it's not going to work. And I think that's a far better way for us to reach our community, because we know that we are overwhelmingly targeted with scams. We're overwhelmingly targeted with all types of Ponzi schemes and all of these other things, just because in the past we haven't had access to these types of investments. So now people, when they come with these crazy investments. And so we educate against those scams, against those things, and try to get as many people as possible to understand the value of what Bitcoin is.
Yeah, and that's really interesting to me, like the entire Clubhouse phenomenon. By the way, I have to thank you, Lamar, because you're the one that got me an invite to the thing, like back in January, I think it was, and you're bugging me for like a couple of weeks and saying, hey, you really need to come on this thing, and I have this group, and I want you to speak on there. I'm like, okay, well, it's not on Android. Like, don't you have an iPhone? I'm like, okay, well, I have one, but there's no phone number in it, and you're like, go get a Google phone number, Google Voice phone number, and use that as your. And I managed to get on Clubhouse that way. But I still remember that first experience. It was just sort of like, wow, this is something powerful here, because you could connect with people with your voice, and of course it's very different than Twitter or anything like that. And I've noticed a real difference in how people take to it if they're spoken to instead of like typed at. Like, what are your thoughts around that being sort of like a driver of a lot of the adoption that's happened over Clubhouse?
Oh my gosh, it's been crazy. Shout out to all of our supporters. Shout out to Cash App, Casa, Fold, Exodus. Because what happened when we started to be on Clubhouse, of course, we do what we always have done. I've always tended to do this, was to give away some Bitcoin. And because it was that kind of environment, other people started giving away Bitcoin. And so we wound up getting this huge group of individuals giving away Bitcoin. Shout out to Andreas too, man. Andreas gave a huge amount of Bitcoin when he first came on. And I don't think he even comes on Clubhouse anymore. But it was like a lot of people were coming through the room and recognizing that we were onboarding brand new people like we used to do back in the day. That's how I onboarded most of my friends and family, was like, here, take some Bitcoin. Here's a wallet, that kind of thing. So we're doing that again. And what happened, the brands, they were sitting in the audience and they were like, man, I love what you're doing. Can we support? And so that allowed us to do some crazy stuff, Jimmy. And we would not have been able to do it if we didn't have Clubhouse. So I can't even say last year, it was this year. In February, we were able to give away Bitcoin to almost 8,000 people. I think it was about almost 8,000 people. And before that, before we even had any supporters, we had already given away over $5,000 worth of Bitcoin to new people, right? And then once we got to February, we wound up getting, bigger sponsors. We probably have given away Bitcoin to over 8,000 people through February and all the way probably to the end of March. And then the rest of the year, we've been able to continue to do that. And then you fast forward to what we were able to do, last month, which was we gave away $20,000 of Bitcoin to a new tech startup. So we even have gotten to the point where we've been able to support businesses, and that would not have been unless we had a platform like Clubhouse to really get the voice out there and to speak. Also, I want to give a huge shout out to PlebNet. PlebNet has done so much for adding nodes to the Lightning Network, and which in turn winds up adding nodes to the Bitcoin network, because many of them are running full nodes like through Umbral with the Lightning Network connected. And I think that's because of Clubhouse. Like, they were able to formalize, get the group together, keep pushing, and create this network of plebs that are actually helping to push the entire Lightning Network and get us to a point where everybody's starting to recognize it now, right? I think if it were not for Clubhouse, that would not have happened. So I think, and it ain't even really just Clubhouse, because now you see Twitter Spaces is starting to pick up. I was one of the first people on Twitter Spaces, and it sucked when I first got here. Like, it was really bad. It would crash constantly because it was only like 300 of us or something like that were able to do the beta, and it would just crash and crash. And then it got better and better and better. Now you can see we're having those same types of educational forums where I don't think people understand how powerful it is. you're sitting on stage, and let's say like last night, I think Corey had a room. 1,200 people were in the room. Like, it was funny. The other day I did a room and Preston came through. 1,300 people in a room. Now, I don't think people understand what 12 or 1,300 people look like in real life. Like, if that's at a conference, that's a pretty nice sized room at a conference. And we're getting it in our living room, some of us in our underwear on a nightly basis, being able to talk about Bitcoin in that form. Like, if it were not for these types of applications, like, I don't think as many people would get this type of message out. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy, man. It's crazy with these voice applications. Seriously, I think it's a huge step forward especially for people understanding and learning about Bitcoin and getting orange pilled.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. What's happening is that we're able to bring the conference experience to people's living rooms, essentially, because this is what you do at a conference. You talk to a lot of people and you ask questions and you get them answered and you hear people speak and stuff like that. And obviously this has like hugely diversified like sort of the Bitcoin user base. I feel like not only just like more Black and Latino people, but a lot more women. I don't know if you've noticed, Lamar, but there seems to be a lot more women in this space than, say, when we first met back in 2014, when there were like 3 girls there, right? Like that was it, and now it's like a significant percentage. What are your thoughts on that, and like the effect of Clubhouse on that?
Man, Jimmy, man. My thing has always been, if you want something to go viral, you're gonna have to holler at Black Twitter and women. Black Twitter makes it, like, the fact that we even have a label called Black Twitter. And I think that that's what Bitcoin misses sometimes, because even when you have the standard Bitcoin Twitter and all the memes, it still turns into a sort of a circle jerk. You got all of these dudes, all of these hard ankle dudes, like, talking to each other and going in circles. And even when you have like maybe one woman that jumps into that kind of group, you don't really have a lot of women. But on Clubhouse, women are very prominent, right? You have Miss Charlene, Miss Naja, Dr. Shaler, like Granny Crypto. Like, even think about that. We even have women who are boomers that are influential on Clubhouse because they have a voice and can share their expertise. Like, it's an amazing, amazing thing that Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces and all of these other voice applications have been able to do, because I think it gives a voice to those people who normally would not be on stages at a conference. That part is amazing. Every morning we do a room called Wake Up with Bitcoin. I think it's Wake Up with Bitcoin. I got to get it right myself. But Dr. Shaler runs that room, and think she's running a room. How many Bitcoin stages do we see women being the keynote? Even now, even to this point, right? How many Bitcoin stages have we put women in positions to be able to educate? How many Bitcoin stages, and not only just women, think about it, a Black woman. So it's like Clubhouse is evening the playing field, because the cool thing about that stage, if you don't know what the heck you're talking about, everybody's going to be able to tell, and you probably won't get back up on the stage very much,
Well, what's interesting is that we're able to market Bitcoin to all of these sort of people that weren't marketed to before. All right, like if you're a Black woman, you're gonna know what it's like to be a Black woman, so you can speak to them a little more effectively and so on. And for so long, it was only really ever marketed to tech nerds like us, and it's kind of taken a turn that's I think a little more mainstream. Would you say?
Oh yes, definitely more mainstream. I mean, Jimmy, you know how funny it is? We sat in the room in Black Bitcoin Billionaire and watched the block turnover on mempool.space when it went to Taproot. It was like, I was laughing the entire time. I said, I can never imagine a time that we would have a room of predominantly Black people sitting around waiting for something as nerdy as the the new block of Taproot, right? With Taproot actually activating. I was like, I don't think it would be like, and it was so cool because everybody was had fun with it. We laughed, we had a little party. Like, it was just, I mean, that, like you said, Jimmy, is just providing access again to this. And I think as long as we continue to keep understanding that we have to provide that kind of access, I think we also have to be intentional about it. I think some people talk about it and they want it. Like they're like, yeah, diversity is a good thing, but they don't realize, like, if you're not intentional about it, people will just be forgotten. You know what I'm saying? Like you were still only working in the groups that you are in. It's almost like having like a Papa John's pizza or something. No shout out to Papa John. I just use that because that's what we had at my high school. But having like Papa John's pizzas in one section of the cafeteria. We know the high school cafeterias are extremely segregated, right? It's like the jocks sit here, the emo guys sit here, right? And if the emo guys have the pizza and they're not willing to go and share it, you know what I mean? It's not going to really benefit everybody else in the cafeteria. You need one emo guy that says, you know what, I'm gonna be intentional and take a box of pizza over to the jocks. And then one jock says, I'm gonna take a box of pizza over to the nerds. And you see what I'm saying? Like that's exactly what it feels like when you are intentional about it. And then what happens is that once you get that kind of sharing going on and that kind of caring going on, everybody eats. Nobody's left feeling like, man, I didn't get a chance to get a pizza to pizza, you know? And I think that's what we have to do in Bitcoin is being completely intentional about it and not even apologize. Like, don't even apologize for being intentional about it. People do it to me all the time. Why just black? And I'm like, guess what? You are very welcome. And that's when I say that, it's so funny because they still don't come to the room. So I know it wasn't about me saying black, but I'm like, you can come to the room. You are very welcome. Just realize that when you come in the room that it's run by black people. And if you have a problem with that, that's on you because we're welcoming you with open arms. We don't have a problem at all. We have white moderators. We have people from other countries. We have all types of stuff in our group that we are completely diversified, but it says Black Bitcoin Billionaire, and that shouldn't be something that deters you because we as people, everybody, just has to learn how to embrace differences and stop trying to make everybody be exactly the same.
Well, I can't believe you're even having to defend yourself and doing that. Like, who thought in 2014 that we'd be talking about Black Bitcoin group that's too exclusive, right? Like that's like okay, like good. Like how did we come to this sort of like timeline? What the hell happened? So let's talk about sort of like what you're able to do with this sort of like group that you have. Like what are you hoping that we're able to do as a result of having a lot of these people that you brought into this this community? Like what sort of social change do you want to see as a result?
Again, I think it's more for me to just provide the information because I tell everyone, don't follow me. I don't want to be a leader. You shouldn't have heroes except like real talk. Like you shouldn't be following. If you're a grown person, you shouldn't just be blindly following anyone. You need to verify. Don't trust, verify everything. But I want to be able to give you that information so that you can have access and be able to benefit from this change that we're having in the world from loose, nasty, dirty fiat to hard Bitcoin, right? Hard, solid, truth Bitcoin. And I think that social change that's going to happen is going to happen because now, even the little bit that we can possibly do, we only have 134,000 people, 135, I think now. And only about 40% of those are probably African-American, 40 to 50% maybe. The rest of them are all types of people. So it's still not that many people in the grand scheme of things. But that small group of individuals that we've been able to plant those seeds, hopefully they grow into the trees that allow us to plant generational wealth seeds throughout the rest of time, right? And getting those people in early provides them something that cannot be confiscated. Because in this country, Jimmy, everything that Black people have tried to put their money into has been confiscated from farmland, which if you look at what's going on with the USDA, they're trying to figure out how to give some of the farmland back. Millions of acres have been taken from Black people. If you look at the enterprises that happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where they basically bombed Tulsa, Oklahoma, and many other cities, but Tulsa's probably the most recognizable because it's on a bunch of HBO movies and shows right now. Tulsa, Oklahoma, what happened in Philadelphia? Like whenever Black people had an opportunity to gain assets in this country, they've been snatched away. And even to the point where even now this is 2021 and we still have discrepancies when it comes to lending. We still have discrepancies when it comes to getting appraisals on your home. All of that stuff has got to change, but before it changes, right? And we know it's going to take a while because it's taking this long. we might as well grasp onto something that cannot be confiscated, that is hard money, that actually saves your time, and something that can actually change the generations that are to come, just because you made a decision at this point to go ahead and grab a hold of it and hold on to it and not let it go, and to continue to accumulate it over time. That's going to change a lot of lives, not just for Black people, but for anybody who's willing to accept the fact that Bitcoin is that savings tool, period.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're pointing to is sort of like the marginalized people that are able to sort of like get one up on the man. I don't know. Is that an accurate description of what's happening?
Yeah, just get a one up, period. Like, you don't, the thing I always say is that because it's an alternative, you don't even have to worry about the man, because the quote unquote man ain't even in Bitcoin. The quote unquote
the man is always the trusted third party or something like that.
Right. Yeah, the man is the man is the bank. The man is the Fed. The man loves his fiat because he can just keep printing it all day. Like, the man's not in Bitcoin. And so what you can do is say, you know what, I'm tired of playing your game, little man. I'm gonna go ahead over here and play a different game and play with a different set of rules that I actually can go verify for myself.
Indeed, you definitely can. So, all right. So we talked about diversity. We talked about Black Bitcoin billionaires. We talked about sort of like the opportunities that are available, generational wealth possibly that we're setting up for a lot of people. How do you think this changes sort of like relationships between people as this sort of like comes up? Because I suspect that like we've been talking about how this is a generational sort of transfer of wealth, and if it really is the case that you get more minorities and formerly marginalized people that are sort of like inheriting a lot of this wealth, or being sort of ahead of the curve in this regard, they're going to have a lot of influence and power. What do you think that does? Like, how does that change everything, and what does that changeover look like?
Yeah, I just think you'll see investments in different places. I think that those people who have it will begin to make those investments into places that maybe not have been invested in before, because again, it will be intentional. But I also think that it's still going to be a lot of the same, and even from a standpoint of the reason why I say this, Jimmy, is because even now I have Bitcoin. And it's the first time I've ever said that on tape, because I don't have Bitcoin. Matter of fact, I have 0 Bitcoin. But what I want to say is there are people who look like me who have Bitcoin, right? And then there are other people who don't look like me who have Bitcoin, and yet some of them still lean on racist tropes, right? And we both are in the same gang, so to speak. We in the same gang, and yet you still lean on racist tropes. You still put up watermelons and chicken and all of this other stuff, which I don't care about, because I love watermelon and I love chicken. So shout out to whoever's making good chicken. But they still put this stuff up, right, in a fashion to try to get you angry or whatever. And I'm like, we both are in the same gang, but you're still using this stuff. And that's why I went back to, it's the heart of men, bro. Like, that's why I went back to that. Like, until the heart of men changes, like, stuff's still going to be the same. And until people start seeing value in others that don't look like them, stuff's still going to be the same. So for me, it's like Bitcoin fixes some stuff, but it don't fix everything. And in the future, you're right. I think there'll be people who didn't have opportunity that'll have, and I mean, we've seen it, right? We've seen this stuff happening already, that have opportunity and have the position to help other people in their lives and those kind of things. I think that definitely will change. And that's why I'm trying to make sure that as many of the people who are not, like I said, on the top floors of the Titanic, as many of them as possible get into the lifeboats. And I'm going to yell at the top floor too. It's just that, of course, they're not going to listen. they too busy. They too busy listening to the band, right? It's like, get off. And it's like, no. So everybody else, they get on the lifeboats, and those people on the top floor just have to get on later. And by that time, you know, those people who are on definitely will be able to have a better life in the future, I believe.
Well, so how do you change the hearts of men? Because you talked about a little bit, like how, to really change, I guess, relationships between people, you really need people's hearts to change. And you did note that Bitcoin doesn't fix stuff like that because it's on the inside. So getting a little philosophical here, or maybe even a little spiritual, what do you do to change people's hearts?
Well, listen, man, as much negativity is planted in the world, I just choose to try to plant seeds of positivity. And on Twitter, many people will probably be like, Lamar, now come on, you going back at some of these guys. And that's the truth. Because if they can come with a lot of vitriol, if people can come with a lot of spite and all of that stuff, then I can hit them back. But if you notice how I hit them back, I don't hit them back below the belt, right? I try to make sure that I keep it in a certain position, but I also want to make sure that my life is the sermon, right? I'm a Christian. Like, I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe he died for my sins, right? And everybody don't need to believe that, but I believe that's the best way for you to understand God, right? Like to have a relationship with Christ. That's just me. But I also just believe that if we all learn how to have more empathy, share love with each other, go from that side, I think that seed of love that you plant will grow into an orchard of trees. That because within every seed is another seed, right? When you plant a seed, matter of fact, within every seed, there's multiple seeds. Because when you plant a seed, that one apple seed creates tons of apples, right? And those apples create tons of seed to create tons of apples. And so my whole thing is like the only way that I feel like I can change the hearts of men is to actually keep sharing and spreading love. And, I have a good time with the people on here. I like roasting. That's one of the things I do. But at the core of me, like if any of those people who I'm roasting ever needed something, just holler at me, man. I got you. You know what I'm saying? Within my means. Let me make sure I make that disclaimer. Within what I'm able to do. But that's the thing. Like I really believe that if we all decide and are intentional, let me use that word again. If we're intentional about planting seeds of love, planting seeds of understanding, planting seeds of empathy, joy, kindness, like those kind of things, I think those will grow into amazing trees. And the funny thing is that many times, like those seeds, you might think you're planting it on ground that is not very fertile, and then you'll turn around and realize you just changed somebody's whole day just by being nice to them, because they got crap all the rest of the day, and you the one bright light that came through and let them remember that somebody's looking out for them, that somebody cares. That alone is how you start changing the hearts of men, straight up, just being the salt of the earth. You know what I mean?
Indeed. Some interesting thoughts here. All right. Well, that wraps it up for this episode of Bitcoin Fixes This. Lamar Wilson can be found at @BigMar on Twitter and on Clubhouse. Until next time, Fiat the Linda Est.